G'day, hi, and welcome. Alright, I'm going to do another voiceover. And today's topic is why cars drivers can't judge motorcycle speed. There's usually, whenever there's an accident between a car and a motorcycle, usually it's the dreaded left-hand turn. Car turns out and guy ends up on the hood type of thing. The statistics, or not statistic, but usually the most common reason that is given why the cage driver cut him off is that they thought they had time to turn. They couldn't judge the speed. They didn't realize the guy was going quite as fast as oncoming as they realized. So they always think they see it's a smaller object and they can't judge your speed, especially when they're heading straight for you. And this is not just cars that do this. Motorcyclists are bad for this too. Oncoming traffic is always kind of harder to kind of gauge than not. So usually when you're a rider, the best thing to do is before you turn or anything, do maybe a 2 count or a 3 count, just to kind of gauge how fast that vehicle is coming at you and whatever. And if you see a vehicle about to turn, it's usually a good idea to wave at them so they know that you're know that you're there. Sometimes they just simply do not see you. That's the other big, even if you're heading straight at them. That's the other thing. The other factor is usually speed. Speed is always a factor in every accident. As soon as you're moving, speed becomes a factor. The factor becomes how fast you go and how fast, what damage is going to be done at what speed, that type of thing. So speed is always a factor that we know. But there's another area that we don't really consider, is that usually the motorcycle is always usually going too fast, especially in slow traffic areas. Usually the guy on the bike is usually always going about 10 or 20 clicks above what the speed limit is. So if it's a 40 zone, they're doing 60. If it's a 60, they're doing 80, etc., etc. That's a big thing. So that's on our end. That's when we're riding. We have to make sure that we're not in tight traffic, riding stupid, because you can put the other driver at fault, more times often than not, but we're the ones that get hurt the most, even if the other guy screws up, right? So if we contribute to the screw up, and a lot of times it is motorcycle fault too. Like it's I don't know if I wouldn't say it's a 50-50 give and take. A lot of times it usually is people not seeing you. I'm going to do a separate video on just being seen. The statistics for, and I didn't know this until a friend of mine had an insurance quote. He had bought a car that was red, and if he had bought the same car in gray, the insurance would have been even higher. Had he bought the car in yellow, canary yellow, the insurance would have been lower. So they even factor in the color of your machine as an insurance factor, that the vehicles that get into the highest amount of accidents are gray cars. And that kind of makes sense too, because gray blends in with the road. Now if you get a day that's kind of really bright out, sometimes the car doesn't contrast with the road, and you might see the headlights but you don't see the car off in the distance until it gets really close. Well, the same thing with a dark black motorcycle. Black is the worst color you could be on a motorcycle, because you're the least visible. Now if it's a really bright sunny day and you've got really bright shiny pavement, so to speak, maybe not shiny but brightened up pavement, a black motorcycle will contrast perfectly against that. If you have overcast, kind of like what I'm riding in here, it's been a pretty dark, dreary summer to begin with, people are not going to see you. They definitely probably won't see you from the side, and sometimes a lot of vehicles, because they're pulling out from the side, sometimes they don't see your headlight in time. Some motorcycles do not have daylights. They don't run during the day. I would always suggest that you either keep if you don't have a running daylight, at least keep the low beam on. I already did a video on running with the high beams on. Just a little caveat to that: you can run with high beams on to keep more visibility. Just treat them as if you're riding at night. So whatever the laws are in your area for example, switching at, let's say you're riding at night and Here in Canada, 150 meters of an oncoming vehicle, you have to flip from high beam to low beam. Well, you use the same thing in the daytime. It's more to catch the attention with the flicker of the headlight than it is for them to actually see the light. And the argument whether the headlight of a motorcycle actually hurts oncoming drivers or not is kind of neither here nor there argument, because not all bikes have the exact same headlight. So on my headlight, it probably doesn't bug anybody. Somebody with a big decker that's got the three North Stars in front of it might be blinding people even during the daytime, which actually contributes to danger, not to safety. So if you ride with the headlight on during the day, I know some people think it's foolish, but I do it. Just when you see oncoming vehicles, flick to low beam, and they'll probably register the flicker before they actually see the bike. That type of thing. Now that said, oncoming speed, somebody wants to turn left. Again, if you can make eye contact with the driver, obviously do your defensive driving, move over to the appropriate spot of the lane to keep you the safest, and be ahead of the game. Be ready to, first off, reduce your speed if you see somebody, even if you have right away. Just reduce your speed a bit, so that if they are turning, you're giving yourself more time to react, to brake and whatever. Like, cover your brakes and stuff like that whenever you see somebody about to turn left. They might not turn left, but if they do, at least you're already on brakes. Remember the rule, the law of 3 seconds. It takes about a second to recognize the danger, another second to kind of to make a decision of what you're going to do to avoid the danger, and another second to kind of start carrying through. Which, depending on how, rider fatigue, all that stuff, it could take anywhere from 3 seconds to stop your bike. If you have 3 seconds to stop your bike and you do it in 4, well, chances are the inanimate object stopped you, not your own skill. So the best thing to do is increase your safety margins. The best way to increase your safety margins, again, be in the appropriate spot of the lane. Try to make sure that the oncoming driver has your attention. If you feel that they don't have, they're not, like, they're still looking to turn and they're not looking at you. I've experienced this myself. For example, the other day I was just walking, and I saw a black car that looked a little bit odd, and then I realized there was a black motorcycle in front of it, because the car was just close enough behind going through my town. They were going at lower speeds, but just going through my town at just that speed where the rider silhouette was completely shadowed by the car, even though the bike was in front of it. And again, I'm a motorcycle rider, and I had a hard time seeing that bike until it took a second or two for it to click in. And sometimes that's all it takes. So you got somebody who's looking to turn, they're paying attention to where they're turning, they look back, they kind of see you, but they kind of don't. You have to make sure you're seen. Now, the last thing I'll say is, yes, you can rev your engine, you can hit your horn. Sometimes that stuff will get people's attention, and if you see them look at you, look them right in the eyes, maybe wave at them. If they wave back, you're good. If they don't wave back, again, be prepared to do evasive actions. Best thing to do is just slow down a bit. Like the guy behind you, use some judgment here to keep yourself safe. Because there is times where I've had people turn in front of me, and I've already started slowing down and stuff like that, covered my brake, and remember, the vehicle behind you may not have the same stopping power as you, so you have to compensate for that traffic too. And I've had people cut in front of me, and I know they didn't see me. I know they had no clue I was there. They probably registered the big pickup behind me, but that pickup, believe it or not, is like you're completely camouflaged in front of that pickup, because they just don't register there's a motorcycle in front of the truck, because your silhouette isn't there. It doesn't imprint on their retinas. You know what I mean? And that has happened to me more often than not, but usually the counter to that was reduce my speed well in advance. If I see somebody and they're like, pretty much a couple of 100 feet ahead of me, and they look like they're going to turn, I'll start slowing down and move around in the lane, whatever. I'll give the guy behind me enough time to stop as much as possible, that type of thing. So there's all kinds of things you could do, but the big thing to take away from this is that you can't put your safety in other people's hands. that you have to understand that even if it's not done on purpose, the average person cannot judge whether they're on a motorcycle themselves or on a car. They cannot judge the speed properly of an oncoming motorcycle, which more often than not the bike is going too fast. And I'm not just talking sport bikes, scooter riders, cruisers, Groms, you name it, tour bikes, they're always going too fast when they get to these intersections and stuff like that. We all do it, I get that, but we got to be a little bit more mindful on that. So not so bad out on the country roads as you would think, but there's still the danger there, because the thing is the speeds are higher on the country roads, but in the city it's the congestion that gets you. So make sure that you're seeing. The other thing is popping out, especially if the light just turned green. Or just turn green for you, and you have say a pickup truck in the left lane ready to turn. Guaranteed, there's nobody going to see around that truck to know you're coming. So maybe move over further in the lane, slow down a bit, be ready just in case there's a car going to pop out in front of you. Whatever you got to do. So again, cautious. 9 times out of 10, if you're doing the speed limit, you have enough time to respond. Again, there's lots of places where you can have fun with these bikes, but and I notice this with motovloggers a lot. They're always riding way faster than the traffic. As soon as you start passing things or getting beside things, that's when you're the most danger. Things behind you and in front of you is dangerous enough, but the biggest dangers is when you're beside something, riding beside a vehicle that's parallel to you. It gives you no place to go, or when you're riding faster, it doesn't give the other guy time to respond. If he decides to turn without signaling or whatever, give yourself the time. All right, so anyway, there we go. Have a great day.